I was kidnapped. For 2 months, I was tortured in ways that stripped me of my humanity. I managed one phone call for help. I called the woman I had loved for 10 years, the woman I was about to marry. Her response was 3 ice-cold words. Cut the act. But now, on the day I'm marrying someone else, she shows up in tears, telling me she regrets everything. 1. When they found me, my face and body were a mess of blood and mangled flesh, barely recognizable. I was covered in filth, the stench clinging to me like a second skin. The first responders thought I was a corpse. My kidnappers certainly did. That's why they dumped me deep in the Catskills, leaving me for the coyotes and bears. I was lying in a hospital bed, marveling at the fact I was still alive when the detectives came. The moment they saw me, their faces were masks of disbelief. Are you Ethan Cole? I gave a weak nod. I figured the wreck in a hospital bed was a far cry from the concert pianist they knew from magazine covers. That probably explained their shock. One of the detectives cleared his throat. We've been looking for you, Mr. Cole. My throat was raw, a dry, itching pain that made speech impossible. I just nodded again. The detectives had barely left when someone else arrived. It was Maya Zhang, my fiancée Victoria's friend. She'd never missed a chance to take a shot at me, to mock my artistic temperament. I'd always been too proud to let her get to me, but that pride had been beaten out of me by my captors. Maya stood before me, her eyes widening. She looked like she wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. She wanted to ask what happened to me. What happened? I got what I deserved for loving Victoria Vance for 10 years. When the kidnappers gave me one phone call, I chose her. But she just answered with 3 detached words. Cut the act. And just like that, my only lifeline was crushed. 2. The day before I was discharged, Victoria came to see me. She'd come straight from a gala, still wearing the designer gown that had been custom-made for her. She looked like a proud black swan. Next to her, I was a toad in the mud. Is it serious? She asked, her tone flat. The doctors said the cuts on my face would heal, but the damage to my body would take much longer. I need regular checkups. But before I could answer, her voice sharpened with blame. Dad is worried sick. You need to call him. I'm sorry, I managed to rasp. I should have called Mr. Vance. I shouldn't have bothered Victoria when she was so busy. My real injuries were hidden under the hospital gown, out of her sight. The scars on my face had started to fade with treatment. You wouldn't notice them unless you looked closely. And Victoria Vance never looked at me closely. If you're fine, then get home as soon as you can, she said, her voice clipped. Consider this a lesson learned. Think before you act next time. A lesson learned? She made it sound so simple. For 2 months, I lived a life worse than death. They whipped me daily. They burned my wounds with a lighter. I ate scraps, whatever was left over from their dogs. If I hadn't been found in those mountains, I'd be dead. And that was her idea of a lesson? All because I canceled one of Julian Croft's concerts? That's the lesson I needed to learn? Victoria knew I had been kidnapped. She heard my screams for help over the phone, but she still believed I was playing the victim, staging some elaborate drama to win her sympathy, that I was wasting her precious time. Tori, a soft voice called out. Julian Croft pushed the door open and walked in. 3. Victoria's expression softened as her eyes fell on him, a tenderness she had never once shown me, her fiancé. The moment Julian saw me, his face went pale. His hands, hanging at his sides, clenched into tight fists. He looked afraid of me. Victoria frowned, stepping to his side and taking his hand. It's okay, she murmured gently. A bitter smile touched my lips, and I looked away. A few months ago, seeing her hold his hand would have sent me into a jealous rage. I would have screamed like a madman. She was my fiancée, after all. Our parents had planned for us to marry since we were kids. But after mine died in a car crash, I ended up living with the Vances from the age of 15. Victoria was always cold to me. I used to think it was just her nature, but when I saw how she smiled for Julian, how gentle her expression became, I knew I'd been wrong. Julian leaned in and whispered something in her ear. Mr. Liang's team is here. So, she was here for business. Seeing me was just an afterthought. I was a fool again, my eyes filled with self-mockery. Okay, Victoria said, then turned back to me. When you're done with this drama, come home. I don't have time for you to waste. I stared out the window, giving a slight nod without a word. But she didn't leave right away. She lingered for a moment before finally walking out. When I heard the door click shut, I finally looked back. I think perhaps I was done loving her. The men who kidnapped me didn't just want money. They wanted to humiliate me, body and soul. They called me a toad trying to eat swan meat. They said I was worthless, that I didn't deserve Victoria Vance. 4. The day I left the hospital, it was Mrs. Vance who came to pick me up. Her eyes were red and swollen, as if she'd been crying for hours. "Ethan, how are you feeling?" she asked, her voice thick with worry. "You can't joke around with your health like this. You scared me to death." They all thought I'd staged it myself, that it was all a desperate ploy to get Victoria's attention. When we got back to the house, Julian was playing chess with Mr. Vance. He saw me and immediately said, "Ethan, you're back. You can't be so childish anymore. You had your aunt and uncle worried sick." Mr. Vance looked up at me. "It's time to grow up," he said, his voice laced with disappointment. If Maya hadn't had connections with the tabloids, the damage from your little stunt would have cost this family a fortune. His words were flat, but sharp with contempt. Mr. Vance never liked me. Mrs. Vance had been in love with my father, and her affection for me was an extension of that. She treated me like her own son. Mr. Vance was her second choice, and I looked so much like my father that he couldn't stand the sight of me. "Robert, that's enough. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all," Mrs. Vance snapped. Annoyed, Mr. Vance swept the chessboard off the table. The sharp crack of the board hitting the floor sent my heart into a frantic rhythm. Dizziness washed over me, and a high-pitched ringing filled my ears. I collapsed, trembling, and crawled on the floor, frantically searching for a place to hide, heedless of their stares. "I'll behave," I mumbled. "I'll get the money. Just don't hit me again. Please don't use the stun gun." Before they tortured me, my kidnappers always made loud, terrifying noises. My eyes were covered with a black cloth, so the unknown kept my nerves stretched to the breaking point. Then came the whip, lash after lash, until the pain was all that existed. "Ethan, it's over. You're safe now." Mrs. Vance's gentle voice brought me back. She helped me to my feet, but then I heard her husband sneer, putting on an act, just like his father. He was always like this, blaming me for the bitter history of our parents. For years, I had tried desperately to get along with him, for the sake of my future with Victoria. He liked chess, so I learned to play. He liked rare teas, so I used my connections to buy him the finest blends from around the world. But now, I think I finally understood. Some things can't be forced. Mrs. Vance helped me back to my room. I lay on the bed, thinking about all my years in this house, a sour feeling rising in my chest. I miss my home. I miss my mom and dad. If they were still here, they wouldn't have let me get hurt. But in reality, I was all alone. "Are you okay now?" 5. I didn't react at first. Victoria was standing there, arms crossed, looking down at me. "I'm talking to you." My gaze fell on her lips. The doctor had told me my hearing was significantly damaged. My captors had blasted loud noises right next to my ears, nearly shattering my eardrums. Since then, I couldn't stand loud sounds, but I also struggled to hear quiet ones. "Did you need something?" Victoria frowned, clearly annoyed. She pushed the door open and walked in. She used to avoid me like the plague. She wouldn't even pause outside my door, let alone enter my room. "My mother said you had some kind of breakdown? That you were beaten?" I watched her lips move, slowly processing her words. Then, a mocking smile spread across her face, still putting on an act. This time, I heard her clearly. She still thought I was playing games with her, trying to manipulate her. The constant misunderstanding suddenly exhausted me. There was no point in explaining. She didn't care anyway. "From the looks of you, you won't be able to perform at the concert the day after tomorrow, will you?" "The concert?" "The one at Carnegie Hall. I was supposed to represent our orchestra. Performing at Carnegie Hall is a dream for every pianist. I was no exception." Victoria looked me up and down. "I'm giving the performance to Julian," she declared. "Besides, you haven't practiced in 2 months. You'd probably just make a mistake." Her excuse was flawless, but her eyes were fixed on me, as if daring me to argue. To her surprise, I just nodded. "Fine," I said. "Let him have it. He can have all my future performances, too." My hands could no longer play the piano. My dreams, my pride, they were all shattered in that dark, forgotten place. They were never coming back. The orchestra was controlled by the Vance Corporation. As the primary stakeholder, Victoria could choose whoever she wanted to perform. After Julian played at Carnegie Hall, he couldn't stop texting me, gloating, but he didn't have my reputation or my skill. I heard that during the performance, some people in the audience started to grumble. Since when can just anyone be a concert pianist? Where is Ethan Cole? Soon, others joined in. The situation became chaotic. If Victoria hadn't been there to take control of the stage, who knows what would have happened. After the concert, Julian came back to the house with Victoria. He was sulking, complaining to Mr. Vance about his frustrating debut. Mr. Vance ordered the cook to make him a lavish dinner, but that clearly wasn't what Julian wanted. He wanted Mr. Vance to pull strings for him, to back him up. What a fool. He didn't realize he was just a pawn Mr. Vance was using to drive me away. Julian had no money, no notable talent. There was no way Mr. Vance would let his daughter marry someone so painfully ordinary, especially not a petty thief. He was completely unfit for the Vance family. Victoria sat down next to me. I immediately shifted away, putting distance between us. She frowned, annoyed, as if I were the one being ungrateful. Then she said coolly, "Everyone was shouting your name at the concert today." I just gave a polite nod, not answering. She pressed on. "When you've recovered, you can schedule your performances however you like. We can also—" "There's no need." I cut her off. "I'm not playing the piano anymore." Victoria's face froze in shock, then darkened into a furious scowl. When I first started playing piano, it was because I saw her dancing. I was just a beginner, a nobody. But Victoria told me she thought I was good. She said I should pursue it. I was ecstatic. So I practiced day after day, year after year. For a long time, I couldn't tell if my dedication was for the piano itself or just for her. Now I finally understood. There was nothing worth holding on to so tightly. It was better to just be myself. Victoria's voice turned to ice. "Don't be a fool." After dinner, I went for a walk in the garden with Mrs. Vance. She suddenly asked me, "Ethan, do you still want to marry Victoria?" "I don't think so." I shook my head. Mrs. Vance was silent for a moment. Then she said, "It was just wishful thinking on my part. I know you're a good boy. You're kind and talented. Victoria would have been happy with you. It's her loss. She doesn't deserve you." She let out a long sigh. I tried to comfort her. "And Eleanor, don't worry. Even if I'm not your son-in-law, you can always think of me as your son." "Oh, Ethan," she said, her voice brightening. "That makes me so happy to hear." We looked at each other and smiled. Mr. Vance was cruel to me, but she had always been my staunchest defender. "By the way, I still have her bank card," she said. "I've been saving all your earnings for you." All the money I made from my concerts went straight into that account. I had intended it as a way to repay her for her kindness, but now she was giving it all back. My nose stung with unshed tears. I followed her back to her room to get the card. When I came out, Victoria was standing in the hallway. "What have you been telling my mother now?" she demanded, her tone accusatory. She always assumed I was complaining about her to Mrs. Vance. "Nothing." I tried to walk past her, but she grabbed my arm. A sharp pain shot through me, and I sucked in a breath. "What's wrong?" Her voice softened slightly. "Does your arm hurt?" I didn't look at her face, so I couldn't tell if her expression held any pity or guilt. I used my other hand to gently pry her fingers off, trying to ease the throbbing in my arm. "Can you just tell me what's wrong with you?" she said, her frustration growing. "I'll call Dr. Evans right now and have him come take a look." Just then, her phone rang. It was Julian. He said he'd hurt his hand. Victoria's attention shifted instantly. A pianist's hands are everything. How could you be so careless? "I'm on my way," she cooed into the phone, her voice dripping with concern. I looked down at my own swollen, bruised knuckles, a bitter irony twisting in my gut. She knew how precious a pianist's hands were, yet she couldn't see the damage right in front of her. Her promise to call the doctor was forgotten before it was even fully made. I should have been used to her indifference by now, shouldn't I? A little while later, I started packing. I didn't have much. It didn't take long. As I was carrying my suitcase downstairs, I ran into Mr. Vance. His eyes widened. "Are you running away from home?" I nodded and said respectfully, "Thank you for taking care of me all these years, sir." He looked at me with suspicion. "Are you serious?" I nodded again. "Good," he grunted. "It's about time." He couldn't wait to be rid of me. My leaving was a cause for celebration. I dragged my suitcase outside and was about to pull out my phone to call an Uber when someone tapped my shoulder. It was Maya. She glanced at my suitcase, then back at me. Are you leaving the Vances? I looked up from my phone and met her gaze. Her eyes were filled with genuine worry. 8. So, where does a fallen prince go when he leaves his castle? She used to love calling me out on my arrogance. The nickname was her little jab, but there was no real malice in it. Her question made me pause. I had been so focused on getting out of that house that I hadn't thought about where I would go next. Seeing my silence, Maya leaned in close. I flinched, stumbling back a step. Her voice pulled me back. Have you been to the hospital for a follow-up? In the chaos of being back at the Vance house, I hadn't even considered it. And compared to those 2 months of hell, the constant ache seemed trivial. Before I could answer, Maya grabbed my hand and pulled me toward her car. She tossed my suitcase in the trunk. What are you? We're going to see a doctor. She cut me off, her voice sharp with anger. Ethan, you're a concert pianist. Look at your hand. It's swollen to twice its normal size. Even Maya, who loved to tease me, could see that something was seriously wrong. But Victoria couldn't. Of course, it was all just my own wishful thinking. A self-deprecating smile formed on my lips. What are you smiling about, Ethan? Thank you, I said softly. Our eyes met for a second before she quickly looked away, saying nothing. Normally, she would have had some sarcastic comeback. It seemed she had changed, too. At the hospital, the doctor's face grew grim as he examined my hands and the healing wounds on my body. Why are you only just coming in for a follow-up with injuries this severe? He demanded. Maya apologized profusely, then asked, Doctor, his hands. Will they be okay? He's a pianist. He can't have any permanent damage. The doctor snorted. Forgetting about the piano is the least of his worries. This man is lucky to be alive. Hearing that, Maya froze. She turned to look at me, her eyes turning red. 9. After the hospital, we found an apartment. It was small but had everything I needed. Maya hired a cleaning service to get it ready. She paced around the space, inspecting every corner. This place is tiny, she finally declared with a dramatic sigh. The prince has fallen on hard times. It's bigger than a cage, I replied quietly. The words hung in the air after I said them. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken regret. Maya had to leave for work, and I was exhausted. The sky outside was overcast and gloomy. I lay down on the sofa and fell asleep. The persistent ringing of my phone woke me. Annoyed, I silenced it and drifted off again. This time, I was woken by the jarring sound of power drill. I sat up on the sofa just in time to see my front door being forcibly removed from its hinges. A moment later, a figure rushed in and threw their arms around me. It was Victoria. Ethan, why weren't you answering my calls? She cried, her voice frantic. Do you have any idea how scared I was? I was terrified you were going to kill yourself. She tilted her face up to look at me. Her cheeks were streaked with tears, with new ones quickly tracing the same paths. A strange feeling stirred in my chest. So, there was someone in this world who cared if I lived or died. Did you hear me? She pressed. Okay, I said. I won't silence my phone anymore. The temperature in the room seemed to rise a few degrees. One of the handymen who had broken the door down cleared his throat. Hey, kid, you want to come settle the bill with your girlfriend here? 10. After they installed a new door, I gave Maya a spare key. For the next few days, she came over constantly, bringing me food. I'd always pictured her as a pampered socialite who couldn't boil water, but she told me she had cooked the meals herself. I was stunned. This is amazing, I said, looking at my empty plate. It's exactly how I like it. The food at the Vance house was always heavy and spicy. I couldn't handle that much salt or heat, but as a guest in their home, I never felt like a complaint. Maya's eyes crinkled when she smiled. If you like it, you should have more. She pushed her own container of food toward me. I hesitated. I just opened it. I haven't touched it. No, that's not it, I quickly explained. I just meant, you made all this, and you haven't eaten yet. Then we can share, she said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. My mind raced, trying to process her simple suggestion. Then she spoke again. I'm kidding. I brought both of these for you. How about I just cook here tomorrow? She propped her chin on her hand, her eyes shining brightly. I looked down, a small smile playing on my lips. I'll look forward to it. Her delighted laugh filled the small room. The next day, she arrived as promised, but she was carrying something. I heard a tiny meow and realized she was holding a kitten A newborn, barely a fluff of fur. Is that, what's with the stutter? She teased. I've always loved cats. I brought one with me when I first moved in with the Vances, but after Victoria developed allergies, Mr. Vance made my cat disappear. I know what really happened. He had it killed. Looking at this tiny creature, I thought of my old friend, and my eyes began to burn. Don't you like cats? She asked. I thought he could keep you company. That way, the fallen prince won't get too lonely. Right, Ash? I had to laugh, though it felt shaky. His name is Ash. You don't like it? I didn't have a say in the matter. If she liked it, that was enough. But finally, I managed to say the only thing that felt right. Thank you. You know, for someone I've known for so long, all you've said to me these past few days is thank you. Don't you have anything else to say? She joked. Before I could answer, she changed the subject. Just take good care of him, okay? Don't you dare mistreat little Ash. 11. For the next 2 weeks, Ash became my entire world. I treated him like my own son, worrying over his every meal and nap. Sometimes, I'd take him with me when I went to meet Maya after work. Victoria seemed to have vanished from my life. A follow-up at the hospital showed that I was recovering well. Much better than before. My hearing had improved, too. I could even hear the soft sound of Maya's breathing when she was close. She had been so worried about me. That night, I suggested she move in. I don't mean anything by it. I rushed to say, I wouldn't try anything. Her apartment was a long commute from her job, whereas mine was within walking distance. It was a 3-bedroom apartment. She could have 2 of the rooms to herself. She watched me stumble over my explanation, a gentle smile on her face. We'll see was all she said, but the next day, she showed up with her boxes. I was speechless. What are you staring at? Help me with this stuff, she said. The doctor said you need some light exercise. I just shook my head and smiled. This was the real Maya. Our lives fell into a comfortable rhythm. I'd have dinner ready when she got home from work, and sometimes Ash and I would walk to her office to meet her. The distance between us closed in countless small, unspoken moments. Life became easy, natural. One rainy afternoon, I went to bring Maya an umbrella, but I ran into Julian instead. He was holding an umbrella too, and he strode toward me, his expression sour. What are you doing here? Are you trying to bring Tori an umbrella? I denied it, but he didn't believe me. No matter how pathetic you act, Tori won't fall for it again, he sneered. Have some self-respect, Ethan. I found it laughable. You're right, I said with a mocking tone. She falls for your act. But just because she likes you doesn't mean she'll ever be with you. A common thief who grew up stealing from others isn't exactly family material. Ethan, he hissed, his knuckles white as he gripped the umbrella handle. His face was red with rage, but then he smirked. You come from such a great family, but you're still an orphan, aren't you? And now, you're a hand-crippled piano orphan. The color drained from my face. You got what you deserved, he spat, poking me with the tip of his umbrella. Something inside me snapped. I lunged at him. This pathetic snake wasn't going to stand there and mock me. Ethan, are you crazy? 12. By the time Victoria arrived, I had beaten Julian to a bloody pulp. You've gone too far, Ethan, she said, rushing to Julian's side to comfort him. I turned to leave, but she grabbed my arm. Stop. You think you can just assault someone and walk away? Before I could respond, Maya ran up, snatched the umbrella from the ground, and opened it over my head. My lawyers will be in touch about this, she said coolly. Yep. Victoria stared, her eyes blazing with fury. You two are together. Ethan, is she why you haven't been answering my calls? I didn't answer her. I looked at Maya, whose clothes were soaked from running through the rain. I put my arm around her shoulder. Let's go home, I said gently. Stop. What home? Victoria yanked on my arm again, her voice sharp. Have you forgotten you're my fiancée? You're coming home with me. I pulled my arm free from her grasp. That's not my home, I said. Her face was a picture of disbelief, which quickly hardened into a cold mask. Don't be a fool, Ethan. Let's go. She helped the whimpering Julian to his feet and drove off. I watched the car disappear down the street, a whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. At the Vances house, the phrase I heard most often was, "Don't be a fool." Now that I had finally cut ties, all I felt was relief. 13. Back at the apartment, Maya didn't even change out of her wet clothes before making me a bowl of hot ginger tea. Don't think about anything else right now. Just drink this, she ordered. She was shivering, but her first thought was of me. How could my heart not be moved? I went to the kitchen and brought a bowl back for her. She shook her head. I hate ginger. I froze, then looked down, mumbling an apology. I felt completely helpless. Just then, Maya spoke again. But if you were to feed it to me, I guess I could tolerate it. She looked up at me with wide, hopeful eyes. I suppressed a smile, sat down in front of her, and began to feed her, one spoonful at a time. But after a few bites, she moved from her chair and sat on my lap. Ethan, let's give this a try, she said, her voice serious. I'm not kidding. Before I could react, she pressed her lips to mine. The kiss was deep and searching, leaving no part of me untouched. The next morning, I spoke first. I'll take responsibility for you. Maya immediately threw a pillow at me. I want you to love me, Ethan. When I see you, I'm happy, I said, the words feeling like a confession to myself. My throat felt tight. I looked at her, my gaze steady. Maya Zhang, I'm falling for you. Her eyes widened in surprise, then curved into a beautiful smile. She threw her arms around me. After we made it official, we went to meet her parents. They were wonderful people, warm and polite. Her father was especially charming. The moment he met me, he declared he was my biggest fan and asked for my autograph. Robert, honestly, Mrs. Zhang teased her husband. Won't you be happier when Ethan is your son-in-law? The room filled with laughter. 14. That night, I got out of the shower to find Maya waiting for me. She ran into my arms and gave me a quick kiss. Ash wound around my legs, purring. I have good news, she said. Want to hear it? I looked at her, puzzled. It's about your kidnapping. I found some leads. The word kidnapping sent a jolt of fear through me. Maya held me tighter and showed me some photos on her phone, asking if I recognized the men. I would recognize them if they were burned to ashes. Hate flared in my eyes. It's them, I confirmed. Just then, there was a knock on the door. It was Julian with 2 police officers. That's him, officer, Julian said, pointing at me. He assaulted me. That's a serious crime. Maya looked at him with disgust. I told you to contact my lawyer. The police said they were there to get a statement about the incident. But Julian was already presenting his evidence, playing a video of our fight on his phone. You see, officer, he was trying to kill me. I was defending myself. I countered. The video starts after you poke me with your umbrella. Julian was about to say more when Victoria cut him off. She strode in on her high heels, her expression as cold as ever. But when she saw Ash in my arms, she flinched, and her look turned to one of disgust. You're living together already? This is my girlfriend, Maya, I said. An awkward silence fell over the room. The police asked how we wanted to handle the situation. We'll settle it privately, Victoria said immediately. The officers left. Julian shot her a furious look. Victoria turned her attention back to me. Ethan, is this what this is all about? Because your little staged kidnapping didn't get my attention, you decided to pull this stunt. He was really kidnapped, Maya said, her voice sharp. Victoria's jaw clenched. You shut up. I pulled Maya into my arms. This is my home, I said calmly. You're the one who should shut up. Ethan, Victoria was seething. Even if you were kidnapped, you've always been selfish, arrogant, and dismissive of everyone. You cancel people's performances on a whim. Don't you think you deserved to be taught a lesson? Besides, it's not like you were seriously hurt. Get out. Maya physically pushed her out the door. Victoria, with her severe cat allergy, was too busy sneezing to fight back. After the door was closed, Maya asked softly, Do you think I'm not gentle enough? I shook my head and stroked her hair. Where else will I find a girlfriend who would defend me like that? Over the next few days, Victoria kept trying to see me. She would wait for me near the apartment building, even if she couldn't come up. After about 2 weeks, she stopped coming. I thought she had finally given up. Then I saw on the news that her family's company was embroiled in a major business scandal. Maya confessed it was her doing. Her reason was simple. She didn't want Victoria bothering me anymore. 15. The next time I saw Victoria was 2 months later. With Maya's help, I had gone to the police. Based on the evidence we had gathered, the mastermind of my kidnapping was Julian Croft, with Mr. Vance acting as an accomplice. The hired thugs were being rounded up. Ethan, Mr. Vance shouted, pointing a finger at my face. You ungrateful brat. After everything my family has done for you. He even started to insult Mrs. Vance, calling her a sentimental fool. Look at the wonderful son of your old flame. Mrs. Vance, by contrast, was remarkably calm. Ethan, I'm sure you have your reasons, she said quietly. Victoria's expression was cold, but her eyes were filled with disappointment. Ethan, my family never asked you to repay us for anything. Are you really going to make such a big deal over one little thing? A little thing? She thought my kidnapping was a little thing? My eyes burned with fury. I ripped off my shirt, revealing the tapestry of scars that cover my torso. Whip marks, burns, puncture wounds. Does this look like a little thing to you? I demanded. You think I staged this? That I did this to myself? I held up my trembling hands. You think I gave up the piano for fun? It's because my hands are ruined. Silence. Tears welled up in Mrs. Vance's eyes. Victoria staggered back, a look of pure shock on her face. You were the one who encouraged me to play the piano, I said, my voice breaking. And now you're the one who destroyed it all. At my last words, tears finally streamed down her face. No. It's not possible, she whispered. You were faking it. I grabbed her hand and forced it onto the scarred landscape of my chest. She screamed the moment her fingers made contact, trying to pull away, but I held her fast. Are you scared now? I hissed. When they carved into me with a knife, this is where the blood poured out. In this spot here, they hammered a nail into me, like a pin cushion. I was lucky it didn't go deep enough to shatter the bone. And this was a whip, then a club, then a stun gun. Stop it, please stop. Victoria soved uncontrollably. Hearing my words, Mrs. Vance fainted and collapsed to the floor. I should stop, I yelled. If I don't say it, then in your world, I'll always be the boy who cried wolf, the drama king. So tell me, Victoria, am I still faking it? Victoria was weeping so hard she could barely breathe, shaking her head violently. I didn't know, she choked out. I didn't know you went through all that. If I had known, I would have saved you. I swear I would have saved you. Maya handed me a clean shirt. I put it on without giving Victoria another glance. As for my kidnappers, they were all arrested within a few days. 16. A few days later, Mrs. Vance called and asked to see me. Maya went with me. I thought she was going to ask me to show mercy to her husband, but she just shook her head. Let him spend some time in prison. Maybe it will knock some sense into that rotten temper of his. Her tone was light, but I knew she was hurting. Mr. Vance had always believed she was still in love with my father. He never noticed that she was the one who personally prepared his herbal wellness soup every single day. Mrs. Vance looked at me and took a bank card out of her purse. Her voice was thick with emotion. Ethan, I am so sorry. I had no idea you suffered so much. I couldn't forgive, and I couldn't take the money. From that day on, I was done with the Vance family. Victoria started sending me apology texts every day, claiming Julian had manipulated her. She said she never meant for me to be hurt, that she just wanted me to learn a lesson. I blocked all of her numbers. She started showing up at my apartment building, shamelessly waiting for me at the door. I didn't want her forgiveness, and I never wanted to see her again. Soon, the court delivered its verdicts. The kidnappers received life sentences. The mastermind, Julian, got over 30 years. His accomplice, Mr. Vance, was sentenced to 7 to 8 years. Maybe Julian could finally live out his piano dreams during the prison talent show. Mr. Vance never even made it to prison. The stress of the verdict caused a massive stroke, and he fell into a vegetative state. With all that chaos finally behind us, Maya and I started planning our wedding. On our wedding day, Victoria showed up, also wearing a white wedding dress. Forgetting her status as a public figure, she tried to force her way into the ceremony, but was stopped by security. Later, she called me from an unknown number. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Ethan, you promised you would never leave me. You said you loved me more than anyone. You said you wanted to marry me. Ethan, I planned a wedding for us too. It's beautiful. It even has the grand piano you always wanted. Ethan, I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please forgive me. Can we start over? I love you. I listened to the messages after the ceremony was over. The Ethan she was talking about was gone. That boy died in the mountains. The man who stood here now was Maya's husband and the future father of her child. I placed my hand on Maya's gently swelling belly and pulled her into my arms. Thank you, I whispered,